Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show. I haven't said that in about 2 weeks. Yep, I'm done with my current exam set and I will be doing more of them sporadically over the next 2 months. So yeah, anyway, now I'm making this video on a particular deck that I've been playing to Legend actually. I did get Legend earlier this morning with this particular deck. And yes, with all the Blackrock Mountain cards, what deck did I end up getting Legend with again? Midrange Hunter, the BRM edition. Yeah, I love how Midrange Hunter has kind of been good, and, well, not been good all the time, but it's been around since, really, before Naxxramas. It's been around since Miracle started dominating. It's been basically a year since the birth of the Midrange Hunter deck as we know it nowadays. There's been a couple updates, but the deck is largely the same. In fact, there's actually only one Blackrock Mountain card in this entire deck. So, it's kind of interesting how that actually works. Something similar happened with GVG, where I think there's only one GVG card in this entire deck as well. It's kind of amusing. No, there's two. But yeah, it's kind of amusing how Midrange Hunter is... It's almost like the dinosaur deck of our format, where you just get 1 or 2 extra cards every set, and the core of the deck is largely the same, since Naxxramas at least. But anyway, so, Midrange Hunter, I think everyone has played massively against Midrange Hunter recently, because tons of people have been playing. It's a very good deck right now, very well positioned in the current metagame. So what I'm going to be doing is going over a couple of the differences in this particular list and why I chose to go for that and what I tested in those positions, because Midrange Hunter lists, they're almost like Shaman lists where everyone has a slightly different list and there isn't really a best list. So things like the trap line will be different, the late game will be different, even some of the mid game options will be different. The only thing that really stays the same is the early game. So anyway, starting with a couple standards. Hunter's Mark, necessary to get past taunts, more or less, so almost every single deck plays one. It's also just handy against things like Mal'Ganis, which can be a pain in the neck when it comes down. Web Spinner, the 1-drop of choice, because this is not a face deck, it is a value deck. You can get rushed down by a Midrange Hunter because it is faster than most of the decks in the format. However, that's only with aggressive draws. The reason Midrange Hunter is quite good right now is because you focus on getting board controlled and getting repeated damage. Functions a bit more like Mech Mage, where you get board control, get repeated damage out of your guys, and then Fireball for the win, only in this case it's Kill Command and Quickshot. So Web Spinner helps with that. A 1-drop Beast for Hound Master gives you a draw, which can actually be very, very relevant, and trades with a lot of the other aggressive 1-drops. Next, before we get onto the trap line, I want to go over Mad Scientist, arguably the single best card in the entire deck, and according to some people, the best minion in the entire game. I don't know if I'd go that far, but Mad Scientist is kind of ridiculous. In fact, just the comparisons are dumb. So he's a 2-mana 2/2, which is possible, that draws you a card, plays it, and is a tutor effect. It's just disgusting. It really has got to the point where you run 3 traps in Midrange Hunter because Mad Scientist exists. You don't really want the 3rd trap. The 3rd trap is usually the worst trap, and that's what differentiates the trap line normally. The 3rd trap is usually the worst trap, and Mad Scientist is he's not dead, but he's worse if you have both traps in hand. So what do? You play a 3rd one, so if you draw 1, your scientists are still going to work. That's basically why you play 3 traps, and the fact that you'll play a worse card in your deck just to make sure this guy gets value kind of shows just how ridiculously good he is. As I said, probably best card in the deck, definitely best 2-drop by a large margin. Speaking of traps, we do have the standard freezing trap, which I actually feel has got better since BRM came out, because there's a lot more decks that are doing rather sort of almost lumberingly clunky strategies, because you've got Thorazan to smooth things out now, and things like Druid is in full force, and tempo mages have been moving around, and what completely destroys these decks? Freezing Trap. Why? Because they have one thing on the board that you can't handle, and they can't attack. So, I don't care if you have a Shredder, I can't handle it. I just pay 2 mana and then basically remove your Shredder from the game because no one wants to pay 6 mana for a Shredder. So Freezing Trap is utterly ridiculous right now, and it's not uncommon to completely lock someone out of the game for multiple turns with one or two freezings. It's just insane. Explosive Trap is the other trap that I am running to help a little bit with the aggro decks and Implosion when I don't draw Unleash. It also does a bit of extra damage to the face, which can be necessary, and you can tutor for it with Mad Scientist. You can actually explicitly tutor for it by playing a freezing from your hand and then sacking and getting your explosive, or vice versa. You can tutor for various different things. Now, the other trap people play is not Misdirection, Snake Trap. Now, I'm not a fan of Snake Trap, I'm not a fan of Snake Trap in this deck right now. I played Snake Trap to great effect before, and in Face Hunter, I think it's very good because they have to remove your stuff. However, in Midrange Hunter, they're already playing around freezing, and Snake Trap, just like Freezing Trap, is at its best when you're ahead, because then they have to trade in. Now, freezing also has this thing where you don't necessarily have to be ahead, they just have to have limited minions on the board, and it can really mess up some of their plays even if you're not ahead. That's why freezing is better than Snake. It just has a stronger and less situational effect. So I don't really like Snake. I do think it's worth testing though, because a lot of things in Midrange Hunter, especially with the trap line, are to do with personal preference. I just went for Explosive instead of Snake Trap. For the rest of the 2-drops, I'll go with Quickshot with Kill Command at the end. Then we've got Haunted Creeper, 2-drop value creature, similar to Web Spinner in its function, but it's just better. I mean, it's basically a 3/4 for 2, and it is a beast, and it works with Knife Juggler. Now, Knife Juggler is in this deck for 3 reasons. One, it is a 2-drop with arguably the single highest damage output in the game, and it controls the board while doing so, which are both things you really want to have. On top of that, it works with Haunted Creeper to an absurd extent. You play Haunted Creeper on turn 1 if you're going second, then you play Knife Juggler, trade your Haunted Creeper, wipe out his 1-drop, and sometimes his 2-drop for free with Knife Juggler, or just get 2 extra damage in, and now you have your 2/1/1s to keep attacking. The third interaction, which makes him utterly ridiculous, is Unleash the Hounds. Now, Unleash the Hounds functions as your AoE that can sometimes go to the face as well, with Leoch or something like that. And it also functions as a charge beast to help do your kill command some justice, so they deal 6 or even 7 for 6 mana instead of just the 5. However, with Knife Juggler, it becomes absolutely ridiculous because they will implosion one of your guys, and then you go Knife Juggler, Unleash, and they lose. You kill all the imps with Knife Juggler triggers. You then hit them in the face for 5 sometimes, or more, having wiped their entire board, and you now have 8 attack on the board for 5 mana. That is one of the single strongest interactions in the entire deck is Knife Juggler Unleash, and you should definitely play around it if you're playing as Hunter because it will destroy you. The last 2-drop is my channel mascot himself, Can't Get Away from an R&B Gal. It's a beast to enable kill command, cheap silence, sometimes you have to go for the face to win, and he lets you get past a Sludge Belcher or a Driddle Claw or something like that. So love the R&B Cow, 1-of. Running 2 is a bit clunky, so just a 1-of. Eagle Horn Bow, one of the other things that traps were in this deck for before Naxxramas. You still ran bows. Why? Because they're just insane. You usually get 9 damage out of a bow. Bow will not always go to the face. In fact, you use it to clear the board to save things like Knife Juggler a lot, actually, because Knife Juggler attacking for 3 every turn plus triggers is worth more than a bit of life on you and 3 damage from a bow. The other thing is it charges off freezing, which is just disgusting, and also the interaction with Explosive is incredibly annoying to deal with as an aggro deck. You attack, he wipes your board, and then, oh look, he has an extra charge on Eagle Horn Bow, and he just kills the last threat to survive the Explosive. So, Eagle Horn Bow is pretty much the perfect weapon for this deck. Glaive Zuka's a little bit too aggressive and doesn't really hit hard enough on its own for this kind of deck, although I have seen Firebat running a teched Glaive Zuka. As I said before, Midrange Hunter, one of the most techable decks in the entire format, I would actually say. Almost every single version is different. So Eagle Horn Bow is your consistent damage. Animal Companion, the best 3-drop you can play in this deck. You only really want one because you're running bows, and you'd rather just go extra 2-drops because your 2-drops are so good. Animal Companion has 3 options. They're all insane. Huffer lets you get some really fast aggro draws, and it actually deceives some people into thinking they're playing as Face Hunter when they're not. It's actually just Midrange Hunter, only they've drawn all of their aggressive cards. Whereas Face Hunter has the other half of the deck being aggressive cards, the other half in midrange is board control-y cards. So Huffer does 4 damage immediately and is a removal spell in all the cases. Misha is a brick wall against aggro decks. They literally can't get past it, and in some cases it's actually just absurd against midrange decks. A Misha with a freezing trap behind it is almost impossible to get past efficiently. Early in the game. I have done this to several druids and they haven't had the swipe and they just can't kill it. They can't use Keeper on it, they can't attack it with a Shredder, they can't charge into it. Basically they have to swipe it or they're not getting past it at all. The other thing is Wrath, but then they take 3 and it uses their whole turn anyway, so they invested 4 mana and they took 3 damage, which means they're not in the good way. And then the Leoch, normally the most useless of the animal companions, has a slight side effect known as pyroblasting someone with Unleash. Yes, I have done this, where they've had Implosion, gone up to 6 minions with a 4 damage Implosion, which is actually a drawback with Implosion if you have Unleash. And then I have done Animal Companion Unleash just to attack him with 6 Hounds. I have done that, and it's kind of disgusting when that does happen. So Leoch is not something to be underestimated in this deck, particularly because you are a bit of a board control deck as opposed to a face deck, so it's not always the weakest option, and sometimes you'll want Leoch. As I said, kill command I'll talk about at the end when I get to burn. Hound Master, one of the flex slots, or one of the most notable flex slots. In fact, all the 4-drops in here are flex slots. Hound Master is either a 1 of, a none of, or a 2 of. There's no real correct number. I'm running 2 because I wanted a 4-drop. I'm serious. Like, that's it. I have looked around on other people's lists. I saw some of the ones that I've got to Legend before. I saw just a couple of ones vaguing around, and they run Belchers, or Defender of Argus, or 2 Hound Masters, no Hound Masters. The taunt section for Midrange Hunter is never the same from deck to deck. It's pretty much always different. I'm running 2 Hound Masters. I did run Belcher Hound Master until about rank 3. I dropped to 5 from playing Zoo and then went up to 3 with this deck from 5. And I was running Belcher. It was just didn't really do anything. And I had way too many times when I had Belcher in my hand on turn 5 and just couldn't play anything. So the extra 4-drop did help out a lot, and it's not that uncommon to play Hound Master on turn 4, and it sucks that you don't get the bonus. However, it will still beat them to death because it has 4 attack. The other thing about Hound Master is that while he's clunky, he's super powerful. You get him on a Haunted Creeper, you get a 3/4 with Taunt that makes 2 1/1s when it dies. That's crazy. You can also use him on turn 5 for Web Spinner. I have done that multiple times. And some of the other more disgusting draws involve getting Misha or Leoch on turn 3 into Hound Master. Now you have a 4/6 raid leader with Taunt, or a 6/6 with Taunt that will probably beat your opponent to death. So Hound Master is a very, very cost-efficient card. The last interaction I want to talk about with Hound Master is Unleash the Hounds on turn 7 to give you a 3-attack hasty dog. You get a 3/3 that probably will kill something, and then provide a Taunt to protect your Hound Master. So really like the Hound Master. It's a bit clunky at times. I'm still messing around with the numbers. Still want to try Defender of Argus, for example. But the Hound Masters have been very good. Kazan Mystic, or Kazan Mystic, or however the hell you pronounce this. Now, Kazan has gone from seeing no play, to seeing some play, to being mandatory. It's funny how that works. The main reason is because Mad Scientist is so powerful, and Midrange Hunter is just a sturdy deck, on top of the fact that Mage has been getting more popular since they got a couple more interesting cards like Flame Waker, which has been very powerful. So as a result, there are secrets everywhere, and if you get a Kazan Mystic on a Face Hunter, Midrange Hunter mirrors actually. Kazan is insane in that mirror, but it doesn't win the game on its own, and the main reason for that is because you're willing to use an Eaglehorn bow to actually kill a 4/3. Whereas against Face Hunter, that just doesn't happen to you. Kazan, they're explosive and they lose. Against Mage, Kazaning a mirror entity is the end of the game. It just has been. And against Freeze Mage, you Kazan their Ice Block or their Ice Barrier, and suddenly they can't survive long enough to kill you, so they just die. So Kazan has actually been absolutely ridiculous, and when I've drawn him, or her, or whatever you want to call, when I've drawn it in the games where they have a secret, it just wins the game. It's got to the point when I will keep a 4-drop going first against Hunter or Mage. Keep in mind, I will not be able to play that until turn 4, and I'm playing a deck with an aggressive early game. That's how good it is. And, as I said earlier, with Hound Master, 4/3s are not good for 4 mana, but if you're against a matchup where the effect doesn't do anything, or in the case of Hound Master, when it's just dead in your hand, you can play it. I've done 12 damage with the Kazan just attacking them in the face 3 times, so it does work. Usually you want to play it out when you have a freezing up or something, because that will stop them from removing it with creatures, and that's a big deal. Have I mentioned how good freezing is? I think I have. It's an astonishingly good trap right now. The rest of this deck is the late game. Well, besides the burn. But the late game consists of Leoch, because he tempos your opponent to death. He's the only 5-drop, and has a 5-mana 5/5. I've talked about Leoch a lot, and I don't think I need to. Dr. Boom started being nicknamed Dr. Balanced by a lot of people, and to be honest, it's warranted. Dr. Boom is actually kind of overpowered right now. Every single time I play against Boom, it feels like I lose way more games when I play against Boom, and I win way more games when I play him. Even when he gets big game huntered, it's ridiculous. Boom is just nuts right now. It gives you a 9/9 over 3 bodies, which is very good with things like Leoch and Knife Juggler. That's a fair interaction. But yeah, you get 3 bodies for 7 mana, and the Boom bots are arguably more dangerous than the 7/7. They will completely wipe your opponent's board, and it has got to the point when a 7-drop is not good against Sylvanas, but not bad, because they trade into your Boom. They either steal a Boom bot, which doesn't do anything because they got an attack with it, or they steal Dr. Boom, who then dies to his Boom bot. He is not bad against a card that is designed to counter large drops. So Dr. Boom has been pretty astonishingly good, and I think he's actually got better after BRM, unbelievably. I don't even know how that's possible, but I think at the moment he's really astonishing. Either that, or people just haven't been using him properly before BRM, they figured it out now. But anyway, the last card in the deck is probably the single scariest thing you have to see out of a Midrange Hunter, and you hear the dreaded high main word being thrown around a lot, especially in warrior players. They just can't handle this thing. So, high main is a particularly unfair 6-drop because, yes, it's a tempo loss. However, you're playing things like Freezing Trap, which tempo your opponent to death, and you have a very aggressive early game, which means you slam high main on turn 6, and if they can't deal with it immediately, which is very difficult, they're pretty much dead. The saying that Amaz coined, actually, was if a hunter hits you with high main, they win. 6 damage is so much, and you just can't tank it. It's also a beast, which turns on kill command, so it does even more damage. It wipes out taunts on its own, and when they kill it, you get 2/2s. To the point where they can kill it with a fireball, and you lost 2 damage. And if you had a Knife Juggler on the board, you just gained 2 damage, so you actually lost nothing. Think about that. That's insane. High main is not the best card in the deck, and by quite a long shot actually, but it is definitely the late game required to make the deck actually compete against the mid-range and control decks once you start getting into turn 6 to 10. Now, the last 2 cards in the deck are Kill Command, which everyone hates, or loves, depending on which side of the spectrum you're on. Actually, I think Hunter players don't like Kill Command either. Yeah, when it does 5, it's awesome. When it does 3, it's horrible. And getting Kill Commanded is never fun. It's kind of like getting Fireballed. In fact, it's exactly like getting Fireballed. Yeah, getting burned out is never fun, but I will use it if it gives me wins. So Kill Command, 3 mana, 5 damage. Sometimes it's 3 damage, which sucks, but 5 damage is what you're aiming for here. Unlike Face Hunter, you can use these to remove things, particularly Sludge Belchers, but also things like Tharzan. The last card in the deck is Quickshot. Now, weirdly enough, I actually draw with Quickshot more in this deck than in Face Hunter. Odd. So, Quickshot is the only BRM card out of this entire deck, and it is the only one I would even consider, at least in this version. Some people are running Ragnaros Tharzan for late game. But I don't know, it felt a bit clunky. As I said, this list gets teched out a lot. Quickshot is the reason you don't have to run Abusive anymore, because it does 3 damage and it's nice removal, and you can burst them late game, and if you're out of cards you can use it to draw by dumping your hand. Some of them are traps when you're dumping your hand usually, so you'll still have stuff effectively in your hand, but the point is you can Quickshot, draw, and it's like, oh, what's off the top of the deck, because most of the things are decent top decks. The worst top deck in the entire deck is Web Spinner, and that when it dies draws you something. So Quickshot has been a very, very good addition. Pretty vanilla effect to 2 mana 3 damage, but in Hunter, that's good enough. It's kind of like in Warlock, where Dark Bomb is a lot better than it looks. Yeah, it's not Frostbolt, but the point is it's in a class that can better use the effect. And in the case of Quickshot, the draw comes up probably once every, I want to say 6 or 7 games, but when it does, it's handy. But anyway, so that's my basic summary of the Midrange Hunter list I have been playing. Before anyone says this is exactly the same as, yeah, it probably is. As I said, there's like 15,000 versions of Midrange Hunter, and they're pretty much all online. So chances are I have got the exact same 30 cards as someone else, but the logic may not be the same. Now, I will be doing a grinding the ladder for this a bit later, but anyway. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below, or if you want to ask me any questions, there will also be a link to the deck list in the description below, so go and check that out. Best analysis from Jotto, signing off.